Now, is it time for President Tinubu to have his own Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, here in Nigeria, imitating the rampaging cost-cutting effort unleashed in the US by Donald Trump and Elon Musk? Well, according to Umar Yakub, Executive Director of the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, it is a policy that will reverberate positively around Nigeria and, if properly implemented, could save enormous amounts of money, plug innumerable leakages, deal a major blow to corruption, improve efficiency and governance, and boost the economy. He reckons it is not only feasible for cleaning up government agencies after decades of sedimented rot, but inspire international confidence and attract foreign investment. But in a world where promises of good governance are liberally made but never kept, what chance is there of a Nigerian equivalent of DOGE? Well, let's hear from the man who is proposing such a government department of efficiency, Umar Yakub, Executive Director of the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me today.
Now, you seem to have found what you think is the key that will at once help to clean up Nigeria, save money, boost the economy, and improve lives. And you think that a government department of efficiency can do all that? Tell us more.
Yeah, I think it should, because most of the times when we think about reducing costs or government spending, we think about the Umar report, which for me is actually still now. Because when that report was released in 2013 or 14, there were about 350 agencies. Now there are almost 700, as we know, meaning they have almost doubled, which means your recurrent expenditure has increased. So what usually happens, there is no way where one country out of 210, over 200 countries around the world, and all countries are competing. So when you have the United States that has a GDP of about $27 trillion, and you are hovering around $370 billion, they are taking initiatives to improve efficiency. That means people like you, or like us, Nigeria, we are lagging behind and we need to improve on it. But there is no way any country can make such progress. China is doing very well because they have a merit-based system. The US is doing very well, Europe is doing very well, but we're lagging behind. And why are we lagging behind? Because any policy formulation, any policy implementation, you have to have an effective public service system and public service that will drive those things. And the way we are now, there is absolutely no way. With the present structure we have, there is no way we are going to improve, because I've told you in dollar terms we have actually regressed now over the last 15 years. So there needs to be drastic change. Now the shift from the Umar report, who was looking at more of cutting costs, now we're talking about efficiency. Efficiency in governance. You can't have a household of 5 people that have 10 cooks, 10 drivers, 10 electricians coming to your house. That's what we're operating. And because the way our system is organized, there's too much politics in governance, where you find that merit is not used to recruit people into government, but because of political considerations.
Very interesting. And your thoughts have come from watching what's been happening in America, but specifically, which is why you use the term DOGE. And your argument is that if the world's largest economy sees a need for such far-reaching reforms, Nigeria must consider adopting a similar model. But obviously, words are different from action. In terms of the action, the US remit of DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is to dismantle government bureaucracy, cut excess regulation, cut wasteful expenditure, and restructure federal agencies. Will that be the same for Nigeria?
Yes, exactly those 4 points you made, but ours we need to focus on a few areas and we'll solve the problem. Now, out of this your 650 agencies or so, you have about 10% of them, 63 of them, who are the government-owned enterprises. That's where the whole waste is. You see, if you take that about in 3 categories, where if you take some, they have cost of revenue collection. They collect 4%, 5% of whatever they collect. NUPRC, that's Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. You have the FIRS, you have the customs. All they are focused on is cost of revenue collection. So what they collect, these three agencies, for example, in 2024 collected about 900 billion naira. Now that's more than the cost of several state governments. Now that's definitely more than the whole judiciary in Nigeria. That's more than. But it's not the issue about what they are collecting or what they are not collecting. Where is the efficiency? What do you do with that? So that breeds where politicians now go there, and it becomes where all the excesses you hear about, billions getting missing, are in those 63 agencies we're talking about, under the government-owned enterprises.
And on a political level, you think that this will also help President Tinubu demonstrate the political resolve needed to implement a more efficient government?
Yeah, our politicians, unfortunately, somehow they get distracted. They forget that we are competing within a global community. Every country is trying to do better than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We don't even know what we'll do with our national development plan, if we have any active one anyway. So what the president needs to do, he has to realize wherever Nigeria is in all of those indicators, global development indicators, how do we improve in the next 5 years, 10 years? Now, the only way to improve is your civil service platform. Public sector has to be effective, and it can't be effective if it's not efficient. And efficiency is what breeds innovation. It enhances performance. It will reduce costs. And this cost is not really people will lose their jobs. Maybe that's what the Orasaya was looking at. That money can easily go into the private sector. Now you take example, 900 billion and give three agencies that are not really performing, they are not doing anything. I will say that, take example, the custom service. They collect cost of revenue collection, and you see government giving them target or revenue collection. Now this is the same agency that is largely responsible for national border security. Now they are distracted with revenue collection. They are allowing all the arms, all the drugs, all the human trafficking going in between the borders. You now take this same money and spend on security, so you have virtually done near zero. So that's what efficiency is all about. You have to do a whole total realignment of these things to our national objectives and align them properly with the minimal resources. And of course, merit has to come in, because to achieve this, the best people have to be there.
Indeed. But of course, there's been the negative fallout from Doge in America. So many people are likely to be let go from their jobs. There are so many cuts to services, aid deliveries that make a huge difference to many people, both in America and the world. So if you decided to put in such brutal cuts in Nigeria, it could end up deepening problems of unemployment and poverty. In other words, there would be negative consequences from such cuts that hurt safety nets.
Yeah, again, the Doge is more similar to the Orasaya reported recommendations. What we're picking from the Doge is, pick two things. One, the introduction of technology. Another example, you have VIO, road safety all over our streets looking for defaulters or those that are breaking rules. Now, if you have a Doge kind of thinking, is to introduce technology. Now you have countries where the camera will just simply pick your plate number that is already registered to your
Which is what happens in the UK.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't see policemen running around.
And collecting bribes. And
Yeah.
so it just picks your number, and you just get your fines in your account. Or some countries are even debited anyway, you know. So this is what technology does. So it's now more efficient, because it's not about revenue collection now, but you are reducing the number of defaulters and reducing accidents. That is why government has to remove its mind about this obsession about revenue collection, because there are other areas where it's defaulting and you end up spending. So that's just one example. The second one, efficiency, it just has to be done. And the only way you can get efficient is you employ the right people. Now, if you have a system where you are employing, which agency should I use now? Most of these agencies have more than the number of people they require. That is why you find out a lot of them don't go to work. When they go, they don't do what they are supposed to do. Now, what happens to morale is those that are working now, their morale will reduce. So you are reducing the efficiency of the organization, hence the efficiency of the system in total, because those that are not working are more than the ones working. So they get disgruntled. Don't mind you, they get the same fees. Sometimes, in fact, the redundant ones get more money because of the little things they do on the side. So it means the efficient ones now get to become like those that are not doing what they are supposed to do. So that brings down the whole system.
All this sounds like it's going to take quite a bit of time. You talked, for example, about technology, and the fact that that would be an essential ingredient that would need to be added to make these reforms work. But there's another side to this. I mean, the countries you used as examples, they are technology creators. We are technology purchasers. So we don't actually create the technology, we purchase them. The difference in the West, which you're well familiar with, is that technology has become a part of the culture, because that's where it's created. People are not alienated from it, whereas in many cases here people are. And even when you get that equipment, to underscore that alienation, we can't even maintain a lot of those things here. So once you get them and they fail, there's a big problem. You see what I mean? Because now you've got to find resources to send them abroad or fly people in to fix it and so on. I mean, how fundamental do you think a problem like that is?
Sure. That's why this proposal can only be implemented by the president. We need a strong political will to break the bureaucracy. And the present Minister of Information and
But I mean, it will take time.
Not really. If the political will is there, it doesn't take time. Anything you see that takes time, it means the political will is not there. These things are simple. And I'll give you an example. The present Minister of Communications, if I'm correct, was in the private sector, and he was doing well because he was in the right environment, and he was doing well regarding applications, artificial intelligence, and all other ICT tools. But here he was struggling to succeed, if I may use that word, but he actually did some things. Now, if I tell you another example, let's say the Bureau of Public Procurement now. All it takes, if you look at the procurement process, everything can simply be done online. Now, this is something, the technology can be produced in Nigeria for less than 200 million naira. Now, I'm exaggerating the amount, the way they do contracts. 200 million naira, you have that software. Now, if you have a software that solves our procurement problem, not forgetting that 70% of our public sector corruption is from procurement. So if you are losing, you have a 50 billion naira budget this year, 40% going for procurement. That means you are losing about 20 billion or maybe 18 billion through procurement fraud. The FCC said so, and another organization. So if you have a 200 million naira software, you are going to basically solve the problem of 18, 19, 20 billion. What does it take for the software? Nothing. But the political will now to implement it is where the president and our political leaders need to come in.
And do you envisage that this Department of Government Efficiency will become something permanent, sort of like EFCC and ICPC? In other words, it will be a government department that will be created, because, I mean, you've got to keep that efficiency going.
Yeah, sure. Innovating, motivating people,
Indeed.
and get it going. But if the political will is not there, it's actually going to be difficult. Right now, they have an
of course, political will could change, couldn't it?
Hopefully. Now they have it.
Well, not hopefully, actually. When I mean change, go the other way. In other words, if you put it in now, you could have someone else come in and decide that, you know, the efficiency is inefficient.
Even the president can wake up and by next week and decide to do this, and it can work.
Right.
He already has an office on policy coordination, which was given a settled role to implement the Oron-Saya report. That office gave itself deadline of 12 weeks. We're now more than 1 year. Nothing has happened. Nothing has been reported because the political will is simply not there. What does it take to even just take the Oron-Saya report? It already says merge 263 agencies. What does it take? They will say the National Assembly. As you know, exchanges will start happening. Before you know, a lot of transactions start happening, and it dies down. So this proposal falls on the president to implement, and it's for the good of the country, because we are competing with 200 other countries that are moving.
But if the thinking, I mean, I don't know what your thinking is, whether you're thinking specifically, because, I mean, you talk about political will to implement it. I suppose you could you know, you're thinking about it on a federal level. I mean, it could also go to the state governments. They can have their own department of government efficiency and so on. But are you thinking of it specifically for governments in power? Because I'm wondering if, for example, Tinubu doesn't hearken to your message, or any of the state governments, what the potential might be for candidates, for example, who want to run in 2027. Because, I mean, I'm sure some of them would like to get this into their campaign manifestos.
Yeah, don't mind me, I'm using a lot of the word political will. This is actually a developmental issue. Whether the president wants to do it or another president wants to do it, is about national development and about national security and economic outcomes. If you want to improve on your national security and your economy, you have to be efficient. It's as simple as that. And the things you need to do is to shred this your present civil service that is not working, is not fit for purpose. We're in 2024. You have civil servants that are struggling to use ICT 2025. We have civil servants that are still struggling to use ICT tools, while there are countries that are teaching their children at primary school level artificial intelligence. We can't move like that. You can't have agencies taking 100% so much money, more than the whole judiciary, and we know the role the judiciary plays. You are not funding the police, you are not funding the army properly, you are not funding all these places, but you are allocating resources to where, apart from rent seeking, nothing goes on there. That's why billions keep getting missing.
You talked about political will as being a central thing, and I think many people would agree with that. But what are the other big political and bureaucratic obstacles that you think this Doge will face in Nigeria? There's always talk about vested interests here, for example.
Yeah, surely, because if you are going to, the problem we have, especially with the government-owned enterprises, is that their cost of collection of the money they make is embedded in their laws, which means if you are going to have a change in laws, you have to go to the National Assembly. And we know what normally happens when we go to the National Assembly is usually worse. Instead of getting what you need to do to improve the country, it gets worse. Because of that transactional nature the National Assembly has decided to become. So the problem is, but once the president, I insist, wants something to be done, we have seen where he wants something to be done and it gets done. In this country, we have seen where a president removed the Chief Justice of the Federation, which that had never happened because it served his interest, not national interest. So it means if they really want to do this with the support of the National Assembly, it will be done. But it should be presented in a way that this is for national development, not to cause for people to lose jobs or for some people to stop having their earnings, whether legitimate or not.
Right. So the key thing here, really, and we've got just about a minute left. The key thing here is that you're borrowing from the big American picture of Doge, but you can narrow and limit the scope of the Nigerian equivalent, so it may not be as far-reaching or as immediate as what I suppose Elon Musk is doing, because I mean, as I said, there are lots of fears about unemployment and so on and so forth. You know.
Yeah, definitely. We're just picking like 2 or 3 things from the Doge example and to implement them in Nigeria. The technology, the efficiency, the meritocracy. And of course, you weed out agencies you don't need and weed out personnel you don't need. That is very important to compete in the 21st century.
I think those are very good thoughts you've got there, and I hope someone important is listening. Thank you very much indeed for coming in to share those thoughts. Umar Yakubu is the Executive Director of the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, and he's the man who is proposing a new government department of efficiency. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, sir.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching.